Hey everybody, this is Matthew Huchteman with University of Missouri Extension. I'm a field specialist in horticulture in the Southwest region stationed in Jasper County. I'm here today to discuss a topic which I think both commercial horticulture producers and home gardeners will find to be relevant. That is dealing with hydrophobic soil. What is hydrophobic soil? It's one whose particles are able to repel water, and this prevents water from reaching the root zone of whatever plants we may be growing. Pictured to the right, that's an excellent example. This soil has been sufficiently watered on the surface, but just below there is a layer of dry and powdery soil that has not received moisture. Another good indicator of a hydrophobic soil, after a rainfall event or possibly a watering or irrigation event, you see pooling of water on the surface and maybe even some runoff. That's another good clue. There is a test that you can run. You can place a droplet of water on the soil surface, and if it does not absorb within at least 5 seconds, then that soil is technically classified as hydrophobic. So the science behind it. Here in Missouri, in our agriculture landscapes, hydrophobic conditions usually develop after a prolonged dry period. So organic matter is constantly decomposing in our soils, and as it does so, it creates hydrophobic waxes. Our soil biology are not able to thrive in a soil that has dried out. The moisture in the soil, the water which is held close to the surface of our soil particles, that's their habitat, and that is necessary for them to survive and carry out their functions. One of the functions of our soil biology is to actually degrade these hydrophobic waxes as they develop. So in a well-watered soil, they're able to keep those hydrophobic waxes in check. If our soil dries out too much and they lose their habitat, there's no microbial activity going on, then that's when we start to see a buildup of these hydrophobic waxes. So some options for preventing hydrophobic soil in the first place. My first recommendation would be to promote healthy soil. That could be achieved through keeping the soil covered, maybe with the use of an organic mulch. You can also work to reduce disturbance, maybe look at options for reduced tillage or maybe no tillage on your operation. This would help to support your soil biology. Use of cover crops is a great option. They keep the soil covered. They also contribute organic matter, and they help to support a more diverse soil ecosystem. You could add organic matter in the form of compost, possibly another amendment. This will help to increase water holding capacity in our soil. It can also help to improve soil structure and feed our soil microbes as well. I would also recommend consistent watering, especially over dry periods. Let's say you have a bed that you've pulled a crop out of and maybe it sits for a couple weeks before you plant and start watering in it again. I would recommend go ahead and maybe keep that bed watered, provide it with some supplemental moisture even though you're not using it. That could help to support those biology and keep them active and prevent that soil from becoming hydrophobic. So some solutions, if your soil has already become hydrophobic, there are some options that you could use to turn that around. One would be the use of wetting agents. These are commercially available. You could also look into making your own. Look for some recipes online. A lot of those do feature detergents, so use your best judgment when you're looking at those. I would recommend going to the store and maybe looking online and finding one. There are synthetic wetting agents, and there are also some natural and possibly organic options as well. So wetting agents are going to be applied with our water as we're watering the soil, the hydrophobic soil. The wetting agent actually reduces the surface tension of the water to allow it to infiltrate the hydrophobic soil more easily and reintroduce moisture into that soil profile and hopefully help to begin supporting biology so that they can work to degrade those waxes. If you're working with a compost in your garden or in your operation, most of what I'm saying here applies to soils as well as compost, which can become hydrophobic as well. Bagged potting mixes are also very commonly found to be hydrophobic. If you're working with a compost or a bagged potting mix, before you apply it or before you put it in the pot, I would recommend making sure that it's wetted prior to application. They can be easier to work with in the bag or before you apply them out in the field. You can get them sufficiently wetted. With potting mixes, a lot of times it's recommended to wet them, and you can work them with your hands or maybe another implement to help work that water in. And usually you can get a potting mix turned around that way. Compost may be a little bit more difficult to work with in a large quantity, but I would still recommend wetting it before you apply it out in the field. So along those lines, adding organic matter, that could be done through use of compost or another amendment. Again, make sure it's sufficiently wetted, and this can serve as preventative maintenance. It could also serve as a solution if you have a soil that has become hydrophobic. I would also recommend incorporation. Let's say you're adding organic matter, or maybe you have a hydrophobic layer in your soil. One option that might work is incorporating that, maybe through use of tillage. Incorporate that soil profile, and you may be able to actually mix that hydrophobic layer into the profile. That sort of helps to dilute its effects. It may mix in some soil from lower in the profile that has not yet become hydrophobic, so that could help to alleviate some of those hydrophobic symptoms. Compost tea is another option. This would be used similar to a wetting agent, but what's going on here, you're steeping your compost in water, and there's some great recipes for that online as well, and you're applying it out in the field, possibly by hand, possibly through an irrigation system, and this will help to actually provide some extra microbial activity in the soil to start that process of breaking down the hydrophobic waxes. When working with wetting agents and compost tea, I would recommend band applications if possible, just where you're going to be growing your plants. That can be more economical to kind of focus that treatment where you're going to be growing, maybe not treat the whole field with a wetting agent or a compost tea. Mulching, once again, this is an option for preventative maintenance, keeping the soil covered. It can also be a solution to help our soils retain some additional moisture and get those soil biology reintroduced. I would also recommend, if you have a hydrophobic soil, try irrigating in intervals instead of going about your normal business of providing maybe a large amount of irrigation at once. If you could break that up into several smaller events, it's going to prevent runoff. It may give that moisture more time to try and absorb into the soil as opposed to just running off. So maybe instead of one big irrigation event in a day, maybe try 3 or 4 smaller ones, for example, to allow that moisture more time to soak in. That's all I have for today on hydrophobic soils. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something new. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. You can reach me by phone or by email. Be sure and keep your eyes peeled for more great videos from University of Missouri Extension. Have a great day.